Hiya! I'm Ink, they, them pronouns, and welcome to the Nook. This is a series I call Dungeon Deck, where we make strange monsters and NPCs for tabletop RPGs, including a creature card with art, stats, abilities, and core phrases. Also, happy Pride! Now take a deep breath and let it out. Here, you're safe amongst friends. Now, let's get started with the actual show. As always, we begin with the 7 inspiration cards. Then we choose 4 to use for our monster. We have a triple nostril nose, kind of boneless hand, bat wing, angler dangly, circular hole of teeth, smiley face, and a patterned spiral. From this set, let's take the spiral, wing, angler, and teeth hole. I have a silly idea for this one. We'll make a flying snail. Okay, now that we know what we're drawing, what can we do with that? Like, what's the core of this monster? That mouth looks kind of like a leech's. The angler thing is always a fun way to include magic, and the wings work well for a dragony monster. Oh, how about we do this? It'll be a type of worm. Not worm with an O, but worm with a Y, a relative of the dragon. Alrighty, now that we have that central concept, let's move on to the lore. Since we're drawing upon worms as a central idea, let's go over what that means. First off, as we established, worms are biological cousins of true or Western dragons. Reptilian, elemental breathing monsters who have both wings and 4 legs, are adept in magic, and have huge hoarding tendencies. Worms share many of these aspects, though are a bit different. I'll use myself to help demonstrate. I am an inkworm, and as you can see, I share a variety of traits with true dragons. We both are reptilian and have wings. Our talents in magic are shared, as demonstrated by the reverse scrying spell to use to film this video. However, there are some differences as well. As opposed to the lizard-like true dragons, worms are more snake-like. We don't have legs or elemental breath. Instead, we make liquid secretions, much like a snake's venom. For example, Inkwyrm's tail nibs write with a magical ink that's perfect for spellcasting, which also leads us to favor written magic over true dragon's verbal or gestural magic. Oh, and we do hoard. This bookcase is one of nearly 1,000. At least I've read them all. Nearly all of them. There are a few that are on that one that I'll have to come back to. Back to the monster now. Let's take a look at the major aspects of the worm and map them onto this creature. Wings? Check. No legs? Check. Reptilian? Nah. That's not really happening here. It's an invertebrate for the most part, like snails and slugs, so maybe this isn't a true worm taxonomically, but is commonly called one because of all the other shared traits. Okay, so the first aspect that we have to figure out are the secretions, or to use one of my new favorite words, suppurations, which means to form or discharge pus. Though I'm gonna expand that definition here to discharge a disgusting liquid, because I want to use the word more. For the suppurations, let's pull from the leech idea. Leech saliva numbs the bitten area and prevents the wound from clotting. For our worm, their suppuration will do all that stuff, but also one more thing. Adrenaline. This will cause way more blood to pump right into the waiting mouth of our snail worm. Yeah, that's appropriately horrifying. Next up is the magic. One concept in particular works great with this aspect that we just covered. Blood magic. General idea is that this creature uses the blood it's stolen from others to feed powerful sacrificial spells. Their specialty, though, is one I will cover just in a moment. Beyond that specialization, they can cast a variety of spells. These spells are channeled through and maintained by this angler-like orb glowing from the stalk on its head. This glows when a spell is active and grows with the harvested blood. Again, terrible thing to encounter. Finally, hoarding. Let's pull on the slug inspiration for this. These creatures could hoard plants, specifically as gardens. This brings up that magic specialty I mentioned, plant growth. These worms are some of the best gardeners in the world, able to cultivate a variety of bushes, trees, and other flora. This is the real reason why these creatures are a blessing and a curse in the world. Not just the parasitism, not the blood magic, but the gardens. If one of these creatures claims a farmer's land, only strong adventurers are able to get it back. However, if someone can provide enough blood and negotiate with the worm, the fruits of its crops will be never-ending. Overall, this lore sets up a terrifying monster that can plague any area that it comes to call home. Though some kingdoms may find a way to deal with them and even ally with the monstrosities. It all depends on the approach. Now, let's pull out that creature card and start filling it in. First off will be the name. Simple enough, snail worm. It looks like a snail and has nearly all the attributes of a worm. Next are the abilities. These will help illustrate what a snail worm can do as well as how it creates and grows gardens. First off are the suppurations. Instead of going for everything at once, let's describe the main points. The functions of the saliva are all about increasing the amount of blood this thing can get. So let's use a word focused around blood loss. Hemorrhage. The secretion itself is saliva, and that's already a pretty nasty word. Finally, we gotta have suppurate in there somewhere. So let's call it hemorrhaging saliva suppurations. So next is the blood magic. Just saying blood magic is too easy and doesn't mention the coolest part, the plant growth that can come from it. Hematurgy is a good word for the idea, so let's call the ability Hematurgic Gardener. Finally, we have the rest of its magical abilities. Specifically, the ability for this thing to cast and maintain spells within that angler dangly. It serves as a magical focus, so that could be part of it. Actually, there's a term for what this dangly thing is, I think. Esca. Esca is the scientific term for the light up tip of the anglerfish, while its length, the little fishing rod thing, is called the iliceum. Neat. All right, let's call this ability Occult Esca. These abilities give the snail worm its primary powers and tendencies while allowing it the space to know more based on the individual. The language gets across this kind of cursed vibe and pushes the idea that this is not a creature to trifle with. All right, now that we have the stats, we'll be using the D&D 5th edition stat spread, but the numbers will refer to the modifiers instead of the stats themselves. Strength, -2. This is a snail, and snails are not strong in any sense of the word. Constitution, 3. On top of having that tough shell, this is a worm and has the durability to nearly match a dragon, at least one the same size as it. Dexterity, 2. The snail worm may be slow on the ground, but in the air it's quite the agile flyer, even to the point where it can hover. Intelligence, 2. Intelligence, while the primary casting stat for most worms, is only part of this one's spell casting, the stuff that it isn't born with. Wisdom, 4. This is the casting stat for the inborn spells, ones of propagation, germination, and growth, ones that allow some plants to mutate into blood-fed guardians of the garden. Charisma, -1. Snailworms are gross in general and tend to be fairly grumpy. Still, they can be reasoned with for the most part. These snailworm stats are very lopsided, emblematic of the highs and lows that this creature inhabits. It's weak and lonely, but when given the opportunity to unleash its spells, entire kingdoms learn of its presence. Hopefully the local lords can deal with it in a productive manner. If not, then they must call the greatest warriors to assault its garden. Finally, we have the core phrases. These are a set of statements or questions that help characterize monsters and guide DMs on how to play these creatures in a unique and interesting way. Grow the garden. The primary motivation, the hoarding drive, of these creatures surrounds their gardens. So their primary and strongest core phrase is to follow that drive. Deals may be made. It would be foolish to ignore the potential opportunities the snailworms gain from their gardening skills. If one can gain huge swaths of land for their gardens, gallons of blood to fuel their magic, and servants to maintain their crops, then why not give a little of the harvest? Drink deep for the magic. Snailworms' primary defense mechanism is their magic, and that requires blood in order to work. This core phrase here is to represent the drive to maintain that defense mechanism. These core phrases set the snailworms up with clear priorities. The gardens above all else. Everything goes toward creating, growing, and defending their hoard, no matter what. Overall, the snailworm is a horrifying creature, a perversion of dragon and worm kind. It's a parasite to its core, but also a cultivator of a large and lovely garden. Though if it isn't satiated, then woe be unto those adventurers who must face this thing. Now, if this creature seems cool and y'all want to see more like it, latch onto that like button and slurp up a subscribe. I also have another video where a similarly obsessed creature protects its precious statues from all invaders. Link to that right now. And for those of y'all who are sticking around, let's go to the comments question. If you were to hoard something like a dragon, what would it be? As I already covered, it's books for me. They're so wonderful, and reading is something I could never give up. Let me know your answers in the comments below. And with that, let's bring this video to a close. For those of you with dark skies, good night. And if you have bright days, good morning. Whatever part of the world you're from, I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Goodbye!